Well, and in Melbourne, Australia, hundreds of Victoria school students have walked out of classrooms to call for an immediate end to the war in Gaza and for Australia to stop military aid to Israel. Students gathered at the steps of Flinders Street Station in the Melbourne Central Business District on Thursday afternoon, rallying for Palestine. The crowd spilled out onto the road, bringing traffic to a standstill at the busy Flinders and Swatsea Street intersection. They then marched along Swatsea Street and into Melbourne Central, where they staged a sit-in. Well, let's bring in global affairs analyst Kunle Falu. Joins us now from Indianapolis, United States, for more on the Israel-Hamas war. It's good to have you join us on the news at this time. A very disturbing story, particularly when you see how widespread these protests are, particularly asking Israel to stop its offensive on Hamas and on Gaza particularly. What do you make of the delay that we now have on the humanitarian pause?
Thanks for having me. This, international outcry is, unexpected in the sense that we're seeing that, according to UNICEF, there is just released a statement saying that over 70% or more of the kids and aged population in Palestine, generally in that war-prone area, it's the worst place for children to thrive. It's the most dangerous place right now for nursing mothers, for kids, and for everybody else. And that's disturbing due to the fact that the Israeli military force is going on to attack hospitals and public infrastructure, which they've told the international press that the Hamas group are, using those public infrastructure places to use as a shield, for their operations, and that's one of the reasons why they do what they're doing. So that's very unfortunate, and people are seeing what's happening. The casualties that's been recorded on a regular basis each time the Israeli goes on the offense in Palestine and the Gaza Strip. There's so many civilian casualties, and that's really very disheartening. People are currently dying. They're dying. They're losing their limbs. They're being hospitalized, and hospitals don't have resources to take care of them. People are seeing that, and they're sympathetic to the plight of those innocent people that just caught up in the middle of their mass war.
Particularly, just from what you just said, pretty concerning that already we have 14,000, more than 14,000 from Palestine, and that's from Gaza now, and 1,400 from Israel, particularly when you take a look at the October 7 incident. But another very important aspect I'd like to speak to is the fact that there was supposed to be a humanitarian pause this morning. We've not seen that fall through. Qatari government is saying that just minor details need to be ironed out. Although some analysts have said that these particular details, when you review the details of this truce deal, what do you see, particularly when they're saying that they will be trading or releasing hostages, women and children now, using them as bargaining chip between Israel and Hamas?
And that's the most unfortunate thing when it comes to war. People generally are just bargaining chips, like you rightly mentioned, which is unfortunate. But it's a game of numbers, and people are involved, and on both sides, it's really it's really terrible to just think about the people that have their loved ones right in between this crossfire. We're having the Hamas side have a lot of hostages, over 150 of them, and the Israeli side also, they do have some of the fighters for the Hamas side. They've been imprisoned and held hostage. insecurity presence on the Israeli side. Now there's supposed to be a change and a switch of people from the Hamas side to the Israeli side, and currently there seems to be negotiations for that to happen between which has been brokered by the United States government, by the Egyptian side, and the Qatari side, which commendably they've been doing more than enough to try and dialogue and work through a fine line in trying to figure out how to make this happen. But on both sides, tensions are quite high, but we will need those negotiations to happen and for the ceasefire to occur because there are women and children and nursing mothers, and there are reports of young kids, 3-year-olds, babies that's being also held hostage but particularly on the Hamas side, and we fear for their safety, and people are concerned around the world. Internationally, there's a public outcry, and also even here in the United States, people are coming out to protest and talk about ways to allow for peace to reign without sending bombs and ammunition and killing people in Palestine, particularly in the Gaza Strip. So on the long run, we just need to have a diplomatic dialogue that needs to happen quickly, as soon as possible.
A very important point you've raised there. Some persons would say that, of course, there are some reports already questioning the stance of the mediators. I'm talking about the United States, Qatar, Egypt. For instance, Qatar, that presents itself as the problem solver in the Middle East and some sort of advocate, helping in the dialogue. How will this Israel-Hamas conflict affect the region's economic growth? Because we already see that. Would this sort of be like a pullback for the Middle East?
Well, definitely. The Arab League nations are starting to look in the eye and walk to the way of peace and for public prosperity and their economic growth. We need collaboration. The international community, Western allies are starting to see that with the onslaught of COVID that we just had in the past, we need more international cooperation among states, regardless of whether they're in the Eastern Bloc or the Arabian Bloc. Those cooperations needs to happen, and that just goes a long way to tell you that, especially when you find countries like Qatar and the Egyptian side trying to mediate, which is quite commendable because we need we need great people and great country with their diplomat advocating for peace, and that's really essential because without it, nothing is going to happen, and people are currently dying. Don't forget that there was an Abraham Accord that was supposed to happen, and that's supposed to be brokering more peace and more prosperity, internationally collaborating to make things work together. But unfortunately, with the October 7th invasion by the Hamas terrorist group, that kind of created a setback between the Arabian nations and the Western countries altogether, and that is very unfortunate because when you look at the possibility of instituting that and brokering that peace accord, that would have been fundamentally incredible for world peace altogether. Because when one bloc is unhappy and problems are happening, it's gonna have a ripple down effect to other countries at large.
It's always a pleasure to have you join us on The World Now. Thank you so much, Kunle Falowo. It joined us from the United States to give us more insights to the Israel-Hamas war. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.